Oh, hey, look at me. I look like I'm dressed to go rob a convenience store. It's awesome. But, yeah, a lot to talk about this week. I did want to at least briefly skim over and review Destination X. Really enjoyed it. I mean, TNA, what can you say? They're on a roll, at least as far as pay-per-views go. Impact this week was a little shaky, but the pay-per-view, I have to say, was really good. I really enjoyed the main event. I thought Aries and Rude had a great match, and Aries winning the title, which was a legit shock to many people, even me, even though I was kind of half expecting it. But a lot of people were shocked by it. It was a very satisfying ending, so that was really good, and I'm genuinely interested in seeing where they go with Aries as champion, because we all thought it was going to be Rude and Storm and Bound for Glory, and they can still do that, but you know, there's Aries kind of throw a monkey wrench into things in a good way, and it'll be interesting to see how everything plays out from here. I thought AJ and Daniels had a great match, and of the 8,000 matches that they've had, this one probably ranks up in the top 5, so I'll give it that much credit. The problem, though, is that the feud is still fucking going, and it's like they've got a crack whore who's pregnant, they've got all these bells and whistles thrown into the mix just for the sole purpose of keeping this feud going, and I don't understand why. You beat this fucking horse to death. Okay, AJ and Daniels, they're not friends anymore. I fucking get it. They feuded 18 gajillion times. I don't care no more. I mean, throw it right in there with Orton and Cena, and Undertaker and Kane, and Hogan and Flair, and any other overexposed, overdone feud you can possibly think of. It's just, I don't give a fuck anymore. But the match's pay-per-view was really good, so that's all I'll say. And I really like Joe and Angle, and one of the reasons I like the Bound for Glory series so much is that given the format and the point system and the fact that how you win a match actually matters and everything, and as the points and the rankings develop as the weeks go on, every match serves a purpose. So even if a match like Joe and Angle, which isn't fresh because we've seen that at least a dozen times, even in those situations, because the outcome can have major implications on how the series progresses, each match is at least interesting, and it's really cool to have that kind of dynamic in wrestling, because again, it's like a real sport. I've seen the Giants and the Cowboys play each other a million times. I mean, they play twice a season. And the Eli/Romo era, I've seen them play twice a year since '06. So that's not a quote-unquote fresh game to me, but it is a very important one every year, both times that we play them. So it means a lot because of the major implications that it has on rankings within the NFC East and the rankings that it has with the NFC as a whole. And those type of things. So I really like the Joe Angle match, and I really like the Bound for Glory series for those reasons. And it's really cool to see all the different strategies come to play. I liked on Impact this week that they exposed a flaw in Joe's strategy of always going for submissions, and that it's made him one-dimensional. So even though it was very successful early on in the series. So I like stuff like that. That kind of stuff is fascinating to me. So again, really like the Bound for Glory series. The X Division tournament was okay. There wasn't really that standout performance or anything like that, which is what you would expect from a tournament. Most everybody did okay in there. I hope TNA keeps Kenny King and Sanjay Dutt, because I think they're both pretty good. Zema Ion was probably the best option from a creative standpoint to put the title on, given the whole thing with Sorensen that they have going. And that was probably the best part of the tournament, was the Sorensen promo, because they took... you never like to see anybody get hurt, and because that happened to him, though, it's made Sorensen very sympathetic. and hopefully that'll translate into something better for him when he eventually comes back. And I think that it allowed Ion to develop into at least a semi-interesting character. So hopefully that pays off and leads to something a little bit fresh for the X Division. But the X Division stuff was okay. You got your flippy action, so that's fine. And a new champion was crowned. So overall, I mean, the pay-per-view was very, very good, especially if you're an Austin Aries fan. So, and Aries is one of those guys that I was never overly impressed with. He was one of those internet favorites that I was not a huge supporter of. But this last run in TNA, I don't know if it's the booking, I don't know if it's the presentation, or if Aries just finally clicked with me. I don't know, but it's been the most enjoyable run I've seen him on. And hopefully they are able to come up with something good for him, in the next coming months. Because it's been so far so good for him, and I do think the title change at least shakes things up a little bit. So we'll see how that all goes. So TNA, at least as far as pay-per-views go, they are on a goddamn roll. That's 3 in a row by my count. When was the last time TNA put on 3 enjoyable pay-per-views in a row? In my mind, the last time was that stretch when it was Bound for Glory 09, Turning Point, and Final Resolution 09. And let's be honest, a lot of the excitement from those pay-per-views came from the fact that, yay, the main event Mafia is finally over, this crap's finally done, and we're finally getting something different. I think that was a lot of it, other than, of course, Hogan showed up, and we all know what happened there. But this is the best stretch that TNA's been on since the Hogan era began, so hopefully they're able to work out some of the kinks, like the AJ Daniels feud, and maybe rebuild their tag division and fix some of the other problems in those areas. But overall, I mean, the show's not bad, and the pay-per-views have gotten significantly better, so I'll give them credit for that. Now, we have another pay-per-view coming up this weekend that's Money in the Bank, and I've already previewed it, so I don't want to talk too much to it, and it's really funny because since I previewed it 2 weeks ago, they've added absolutely no matches to it, unless you count the pre-show match, which I don't. So I just think that's really funny that it's like this problem of not having their whole card announced is getting worse and worse and worse. I mean, just is it really that hard to announce a full card? I mean, okay. They've got, and I'm not saying it's the most stellar feud in the world. I'm not saying I even really like these teams, but you've got Primo and Epico, and you have the primetime players in a pseudo feud that gets mentioned once in a while. Would it really be that hard to just announce a match? Just announce the match? I mean, it wouldn't be that much of a stretch to have it on the pay-per-view. Now watch, they'll probably throw that out there on the pay-per-view, but it wasn't advertised, so the match doesn't matter. You'll probably get a Ryback match, but fuck that shit. But that's a major presentation problem that the WWE has now, and I don't know why they have that problem, because it's not that hard to have your full pay-per-view card set at least the week before the show. How do I know that? Because WWE used to do it all the fucking time. Even during the Attitude Era, when things were like crazy and they were changing shit on the fly all the fucking time, they always had their full pay-per-view card announced at least a week before the show. I don't remember any quote-unquote bonus matches being thrown out there at the last minute with no, advertisement. But yeah, I mean, that's... we got Money in the Bank this Sunday, and I wanted to talk about the importance of being a World Heavyweight Champion in the WWE and how that label to me has been devalued. And part of the problem is the way they handle Money in the Bank. Part of the problem is the way they handle Elimination Chamber. And it's not even so much the gimmick matches. It's just problems that have been created by the mere fact that they have 2 world titles. To me, I hate the fact that there are 2 world champions, and I've said that before. They either need to drop the World Heavyweight title, because that's the secondary title at this point. The World Heavyweight title, that belt that Sheamus has, they either need to drop it, or they need to unify it with the WWE title. And I felt like they had a chance to do that earlier this year for WrestleMania, and I think that would have been a big match, but, what do I know? But, to me, that's a major problem, because if you have 2 guys running around claiming to be World Heavyweight Champion, then being one doesn't mean as much. Because, I mean, that basically takes the importance of being World Heavyweight Champion and divide it into 2. Because, you don't have a number 1 guy. You have 1 and 1A, basically. And to me, that doesn't work. One of the reasons that I like pro football more than college ball, as opposed to, let's forget the fact that the NFL is, the big boy league and, the more important one by default. One of the reasons that I enjoy the NFL more is that by the end of the season, you only have one supreme team. You have one team that wins the Super Bowl. And that to me is a really big deal. College ball, there's like 87 bowl games, and it's almost impossible to follow. I mean, it's a pain in the ass, quite honestly. And, the WWE has that same problem right now where it's like, well, okay, who's the true... Try explaining to somebody that doesn't watch the WWE. Try explaining, and this might be part of the reason why they have such a hard time winning over new fans. I don't know. Try explaining to people, if they ask you, okay, who's the champion? And you go into this long diatribe of explaining, well, there's the WWE champion and there's the World Heavyweight champion. So wait, there's no number one best? I mean, what athlete would appreciate a system like that? I mean, let's be honest. If there's no number one best, what's the point of shooting for... What's the point of shooting to be the best if you can't be the best? I hope that makes sense, but... Yeah, and because there are 2 world titles, it creates double the opportunities to go for them, to go for one. I remember when I was a kid, if you didn't win the Royal Rumble, better luck next year. And so that made the Royal Rumble seem even more special. Now you've got the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, which would be fine if there was only one of them, but because they've got 2 Elimination Chamber matches, it kind of devalues the Royal Rumble a little bit, where it's like, all right, you had 30 guys fighting for a title shot at WrestleMania, and then the next month, 10 guys who presumably may have been in the Royal Rumble and lost get a world title shot. And it's just kind of like, it's just so easy to get a fucking title shot these days that it almost feels like the system's broke. Daniel Bryan loses at WrestleMania in 18 seconds. Then he loses to Sheamus at the next pay-per-view. And then I believe it was the next night on Raw, he beats Jerry Lawler in 2 minutes, and all of a sudden he can go for the other world title. You lose one, you can just go for the other one. And to me, that's, part of what makes a world title actually mean something is if it's hard to go for. And that's true in sports entertainment, the world of professional wrestling. That's true in real sports as well. A lot of these championships that you have to win in pro sports, it's almost like a baptism through fire type of system where you have to win a long stretch of games in a row, or you have to win a best-of-7 series to win the big boy title. And, the way the WWE has things set up, you can jump from show to show. The brand extension's dead, let's be honest. This insanity that, we need 2 world titles, one for each brand, is ridiculous because the brand extension is just dead in the ground. You got SmackDown, quote-unquote SmackDown guys showing up on Raw every week, and you have Raw guys showing up on SmackDown, and it's just, who the fuck cares? There is no brand extension. That's why I laugh whenever there's a news report saying, the draft has been pushed back, and it's like, you go on message boards and they say, I wonder who's going to get drafted to who this year. It's like, who gives a fuck? Everybody's on both shows anyway. It doesn't matter. But if it's so much easier to get a title shot, then to me, it makes the title not mean as much. And that's also hindered by the fact that, if they're doing a program, they'll have one guy lose 3 matches, and somehow he's still number 1 contender. The best example of that was Orton and Christian, where Christian lost like 4 or 5 times in a row, and yet somehow he's still the number 1 contender. I don't know how that works, but they eventually just gave him the belt again just to break up the monotony. And then, of course, he lost it a month later anyway. So I think the final numbers on the Orton-Christian series was like 8-1 or something ridiculous like that. But yeah, that's a serious problem that the WWE needs to fix. And people have asked me, it's like, well, if you were writing for the WWE, what would your ideas be? And I'll tell you this, if I got hired to the WWE creative staff, the very first thing I would do, day one, I would go in there and say, look, this whole 2 world title bullcrap, it needs to stop. It needs to stop. We need to get rid of one of them or unify them or whatever, but it needs to stop because we need to go back to making the world title like this prestigious thing, this holy grail that's hard to get. And nowadays, and people on the internet, they mark out if somebody that they like wins the World Heavyweight title, but it doesn't matter because the World title is basically a glorified mid-card title at this point. But the fact that it exists takes away from the WWE title because you have another guy running around in the company claiming to be the World Heavyweight Champion. So it really doesn't make any sense. And, I'll be honest with you, Dolph Ziggler is probably going to win the Money in the Bank, and he's probably going to win the world title out of it. But, and I've been a fan of Ziggler since the early days. Like, I remember watching him when he was getting squashed every week. And he had a match with Rey Mysterio where all he did was sell because he got no offense in. I was like, wow, that guy can really sell. They should probably do something with him. And I really got behind him in 2009 when he was on SmackDown. So I'm a big Dolph Ziggler fan, but if he was going to win a major main event title, I would want it to be under a more, a more prestigious system of actually getting him to that point. Now it's just, you've got 2 Money in the Bank ladder matches, so that's, 12 guys getting a chance at a title shot. Again, you've got the WWE title is taking precedence over the world title, so it just feels like the world title Money in the Bank match is just kind of the island of misfit toys, kind of the mid-carder guys that don't really have much of a direction right now, so they're just kind of like throwing them in the world title picture because that's kind of what the world title picture is right now. And Ziggler's going to win, and he's probably going to win the World Heavyweight title, but it's going to be kind of shallow because he's not the number 1 guy. And that, to me, that's not good enough. To me, like, would Austin Aries win have really meant as much if there was another guy claiming to be World Heavyweight Champion in TNA? Probably not. I remember when they tried to push the ECW title like it was a legit third world title. I don't think anybody bought that. Like, they had Lashley standing there with Batista and Cena, and it was like, wow, really? This is you really want us to buy that? Okay, I'll yeah, whatever. Like anybody would go for that belt, but yeah, I think that's a major problem that the WWE needs to work on. Making titles matter in general is something that needs to be fixed. Punk being champion for as long as he has certainly helps. That is definitely the more meaningful of the 2 world titles, but I think it would make the label of being world champion mean so much more if he was the only one in the company that had that label. But what do I know? I'm just a fan. But yeah, that's all I got for this week. Next week, because we got the 1000th episode of Raw coming up, I will finally post my tribute to my all-time favorite episode of Raw in commemoration of the great achievement that Raw is reaching 1,000 episodes. It's a really big deal to reach that kind of a milestone. So it'll be cool to do something to kind of celebrate that. And I might have a video earlier in the week talking about Money in the Bank. But we'll see how that goes. So hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend. If you're watching Money in the Bank like I am, I'm going to order it. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully it turns out well, and hopefully Punk and Bryan. I'm actually looking forward to Punk and Bryan because we already got the technical match with Over the Limit. I think this one's going to be like, with AJ thrown in the mix, I think it's going to be a really, really, really chaotic mess of a match. And I mean that in a good way. I think it could be like this really wild and super strange type of match. Like the point of reference, go watch the main event to SummerSlam 2000, the 3-way between Triple H, Kurt Angle, and The Rock for the title. That match was fucking balls to the walls, just nutty. That's the best way I can describe it, nutty, but it was a lot of fun to watch. So I think Punk and Bryan can have a match along those lines, while also offering the great wrestling ability that they're known for. So hopefully Money in the Bank turns out well. I will see you all next week with my 1000th episode of Raw tribute, and continue to send me questions for my question and answer video, which I'll get to once we're done with the 1000th episode of Raw and everything surrounding that. So peace out.